Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we move on to the second panel discussion for this summit, titled Changing Landscape for Indian Businesses with AI and RPA. I'd first like to welcome and introduce the members of this power-packed panel. Sudhir Dasamanthara, Director, Global Business Services and Chief Transformation Officer, APAC, Boston Scientific. Mukesh Jain, Chief Technology and Information Officer and Vice President, Insights and Data, Capgemini, India. Subramanya C, Global Chief Technology Officer, Hinduja Global Solutions. Balaji Thiruvengadam, Senior Director, R&D, ADP, India. Ravi Vasantraj, Senior Vice President and Global Head, Business Process Services, Emphasis. And Anil Chawla, Managing Director, India and SAARC, Verint. This session will be moderated by Alok Verma, Partner, Strategy and Operations Leader, West Grant Thornton. Alok, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Evan. Great to be on the panel with such illustrious leaders from the industry. Welcome to the audience. I think the discussion is going to be around the changing landscape for Indian businesses using AI and RPA. It's interesting times we live in. We're pretty much seeing disruption everywhere. Even before COVID hit us, I think we were already seeing disruption. And I think our topic is more AI and RPA focused, which means, yes, I think COVID would have enabled a few things for us, but I think these disruptive forces, these exponential technologies combined with, let's say, some regulatory aspects, combined with changing behavioral pieces in terms of maybe, I think, enabled by work from home or other aspects, I think are leading to a disruption in the landscape. So I think we will, as a panel, deliberate on a few things in terms of the new solutions that are coming out from an AI and RPA standpoint. We would look at maybe the aspect of automation impact. It could be in terms of the fear over automation, or even I think the opportunities from an automation standpoint. And finally, we'll close the discussion in terms of the future of work. I think the previous session was also on the future of work, but we will focus more on the future of work as it relates to AI and RPA impacts. So I think that's going to be the focus for us. I think, but what we'll do is we will set it rolling with such a distinguished panel. What I'll do is maybe I'll cover these three themes. With the first one is more in terms of what new innovations are being driven from your customer base or internally within your organizations. So I think what I will request is maybe for Subbu to share some experiences coming from Hinduja Global Solutions, where I think there's a big emphasis on the digital initiative, the AGS digital initiative. I know there are lots of satisfied customers when it comes to AI impact in your own services offerings. So over to you, Subbu. Your initial
Thank
thoughts.
you, Alok. I think very valid point what you rightly stated off, because today digital is the way everybody spoke about. Today, I'm sure all the panelists or all the speakers in the morning till now, if you really look at digital, is one of the words which everybody would have really used. They would have not missed at all, right? In the same conference, I can definitely say 10 years, 20 years ago, where I was also speaking, right? The digital was there, but not by every panelist or everybody, right? Because that's going to be the future type is what people were saying, right? If you look at embracing, the change has been the phenomenon for the BPM industry, not now, since the start till now, right? Because the whole evolution has happened based on that, whether it is providing customer service in a different manner or innovating customer service or doing a transformation to a customer in his own journey and looking at experiences from multiple customers, whichever is non-compete, you need to pick the best practices, next practices, go back to your customers and try to educate them and take them forward, right? I think that's the reason where the customers will stay on, right? Today, we take pride in having a lot of our customers who are working with us for over 20 plus years. The reason why they really work with you is because you go back to them, do a lot more innovate and do a lot more disruption. and you need to disrupt yourself and you need to disrupt your customer to make things happen. It's not as easy as what we really say, right? Because it is not completely controlled by all of us who are sitting in the panel here, except for some of the captives like ADP and others, right? We are a third-party BPO center. We need to align ourselves with the customer's mapping. When I say customer mapping, an IT guy needs to map with an IT chief security officer, information security officer, needs to map customer service, chief digital officer. All this you need to start working with your customers' digital roadmap. So if you ask me, I will always do a digital roadmap for an enterprise like us and a digital roadmap for our customers, because it is very important that we look at a customer's maturity. It all depends on right from the stage what he is in. Is he on a web-based application to a mainframe application, right? And what is his journey? Today, we may really go and try to give him something as an RPA, right? And tomorrow, he may have a vision. If we are not aligned to his vision, stating that I'm planning to change my platform in the next 1 year, it is not worth for you to really go and make him reinvest on something, right? You need to align very clearly while you're drawing a digital roadmap for your clients also, right? Digital strategy, with what you really call, is very important for your customers, right? So this is very, very key journey for us in the BPO industry and for our customers, right? It is, sorry,
Go ahead. Yeah,
in terms of automation, what you spoke about, right? The digital journey, because the definition of digital is very, very important for each customers, each vertical, and to a large extent to each geography also. If you look at an India, and if I go and tell him, boss, I'll give you digital, okay, I have a web which is already there. And I heard in few earlier conversations which are saying that, in a web page, a chatbot is coming up and that itself is a digital. Yeah, you're right. As I said, it is a maturity of the customers on the digital journey, right? Now looking at automation, which is also a very, very key subject, right? If you have to do an automation, that's what I always say. What is a definition, what you want to do for a digital? What is your automation? What is your AI? What is your machine learning, right? These are highly commonly used words. And can you really take one customers and then copy paste into other customer? Certainly not, right? Can we reuse some of the experiences and modules and shrink the time frame to do it for the customers? Absolutely, yes. So the learnings of every customer, every journey, every vertical needs to be absolutely replicated across for the future customers, which will build you. Today, we have over 50% of our customers in healthcare. The type of activity which we are doing in the year 2000 and the way which we are doing in 2020 for the same customers have gone miles ahead, real miles ahead, right? We have almost become an advisor to the customer without having the big tags of what Alok can say, I'm from GT, right? So we need to really deliver the services to the customer, but again, be a part of advisory, be a part of their own team while they are making decisions, because the amount of domain expertise, what we are really built in, we can go back and tell the customer, these are the ones which can get automated, and we will help you in your journey. We may be cutting our own leg at some point of time, but if I don't do it, somebody else in the panel who's really sitting there or the competition will go and try to do it. So we need to always keep it very simple. And I was just hearing to you in Manish's statement, we need to keep it simple. We need to keep on modernizing it. If we don't really go on modernizing it, it's very difficult for a customer to really be in. We always used to say the stickiness of the customer. Stickiness doesn't just come, right? You need to give him an innovation, give him a journey, work with him collaboratively. Only then things will move. After doing all this, then look at automation and then look at which are the low-hanging fruits and then start building up the automation journey for the client. I'll try to pause here, give it back to you, Alok, and you can come back to me.
Sure, absolutely. I think these are interesting thoughts. I think one is alignment with the digital roadmap of the customer. I think also the fact that you continuously learn from your customers, obviously not replicate as is, but you get the learning into the next engagement or the next interaction you have. And also just don't blindly go ahead on the automation journey. Exactly. It has to be integrated overall. So thanks for that, Subbu, for initial comments and sets the agenda as well. Let me bring on Anil to share additional use cases that he's seeing from his vantage point at Virint. Over to you, Anil.
Thank you, Alok, and thanks, Subbu, for setting the stage. I think it's very important, what Subbu mentioned. There is a different set of maturity curve for different customers to really adopt, AI and RPA. So I'll give you some illustration, and Manish alluded that in the previous presentation about, everybody has their own maturity curve. So we need to look at how do we simplify the existing environment that you have. That would mean that, you can start at any point that you want and not being enforced for, really looking and adopting a technology. Second could be, how do you look at modernizing it? Essentially, modernizing mean how do you integrate, some of the new applications to your core applications? That's very important in today's world, because when you look at cloud coming in, you'll have your own applications that you don't want to let go of, but you want a very native integration using APIs. So there is a very important step called modernization, and then comes the automation part of it. Where you have really moved 2 steps forward, then you realize that yes, now I'm in a position where, as an organization, we can automate things. So what I see, Alok, and alluding to what Subbu mentioned, is that when you look at today's process and evolution in the BPM space, it's very important to not only have a solution focus, but also to have a framework which defines very clearly things around how are you able to analyze your customers' interaction across all the channels. And Subbu mentioned, right, that there are multi-channel today available that customers can really pick and choose. Right. So how do we ensure that as an organization and as Verint, we provide solutions to our customers, which is, top 8 out of 10 BPO users Verint today, is that how do we provide them a unified voice of the customer analytics platform, which really incorporate things like speech analytics, also to include insights from text analytics, and then also to ensure that they get on the same platform the survey data for their customer. So it's a very holistic platform that really gives them a single view of your customers' interactions across all channels. While we do that, there is very important 4 factors that I want to highlight here, which really sets the framework for most of the customers today from a CX perspective. One, how do we ensure that the contact center is really, taking care of all the conversation that happens in a contact center? That means, do you have an AI-based tool today? Could be speech analytics, for an example, which really gives you the trends that are happening as and when within the contact center. That's very important. Can you also do and provide actionable intelligence to your agents, which is using AI? So that's point number 1. Second, look at how do you do analytics on text, which could be chat, which could be email, social media. That brings a very important data-driven insights, into the contact center today. Third one, I would say, which has changed in the recent times, but being very important, is the sentiment analysis. It's very important to have empathy today, right? When customers are calling in, how do you ensure that the AI tool of analytics that is being used is also able to guess and analyze and provide sentiment analysis to the agents, right? That's there's the third step. And the fourth one, I would say, which is in the work from home scenario, because agents are working from home, what is now the most important that has come up is that can you really provide an agent an automated guidance, right? Using some of the predictive AI technology, like I can allude to one from Verint, is speech analytics and text analytics, which is part of the voice of customer analytics suite. So these 4 points today are the basic pillars, which essentially makes one, life easy for the agents working from home. Second, from an enterprise perspective, bring in intelligence, and we are able to track sentiments for your agents across. So these 4 steps are very important, not only from a solution perspective, but also to set a framework, that really sets ourselves to use AI and automated tools in the coming times.
Thanks, Anil. I think you did build upon Subbu's initial perspective with the unified VOC, the speech analytics, the text analytics, the different solutions that probably Verint is anyway offering across the BPO landscape. And as well as I think the sentiment analysis is an interesting one. I think how empathy is so critical in these times, and I think going forward as well. I think that's something that maybe I think you will need more of an AI engine to kind of gather those cues to be able to maybe interact or let the agent know on those fronts. So thanks for that. Let me bring on Mukesh from Capgemini. Mukesh, if you can just maybe give us a view of the use cases. I think I don't know whether it's relevant to this conversations. I think there is something on the Millennial Garage that I think you've led as an organization individually as well. I think that's an innovation platform. Does it have anything to do with AI?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on the call. So yes, so when I started Millennial Garage, the purpose was, how can I make it easier for people to think from the use cases side on AI and leverage data, be it for BPO, be it for any product. The purpose was, why do somebody will call, right? So understanding those perspective using AI, right? Can I predict that this customer is going to call, and can I prevent those from happening? So some of my experience working at Microsoft and here working for Geo, and I'm bringing it together and saying, okay, fine, is the app which people are using, the software they are using, the website they are using, can they collect the data at the right time? Which means, we are able to understand the user behavior. I call it behavioral science. Understanding those parts using artificial intelligence and building the user journey map, saying that, okay, fine, this is what the user doing. Probably the person is upset now, and the person is going to call now, or the kind of a complaint they're going to file. So those parts we were able to do with Millennial Garage. Of course, I always had that the fear in my mind that Millennial Garage has to be a physical space. People may not work, considering most of the people are fresh out of college. But I was proven wrong. I'm happy for that. That with COVID and all, working from home, people were able to go from work from home. In fact, I've seen higher productivity for various reasons. But yes, be able to come up with some of the solutions, which now we are able to power some of the projects we are doing in the BPO area, wherein we are leading through AI. We're able to predict what's going to happen, and then trying to minimize reduce the calls itself if I'm able to get the output even before the person comes to the chat window. I think those are some of the things we are able to achieve. And with Millennial Garage, of course, what we have seen is the engagement is higher. Now, what people are thinking, yes, I'm fresh out of college, but now I have opportunity to come up with an idea. I can build something. And they will invariably, I interact with them regularly. Invariably, they'll come to me and say, hey, Mukesh, I have some idea. When I was trying to call this particular service, I had this bad experience. If I do this way, probably we can prevent that from happening. Sure, why not? So with that, we are able to come up with more scenario, as Subbu mentioned in the beginning, like learning from each customer. So we are learning from our own experience and trying to build those assets library, which we can combine and then stitch together to get that value for the BPO side. I think that is how we are able to drive more innovation at the grassroots level using Millennial Garage at Capgemini.
Okay, very, very interesting concept, Mukesh. And I think that's very critical also in terms of how we are using the startup ecosystems to innovate. And I think that's something that probably the bigger companies probably either are already doing or they should be doing going forward, because the kind of innovation that a grassroots or an individual can do, I think a bigger company with, let's say, more bureaucracy might not be able to do, might not have the flexibility to do that. And maybe I think that passion also, which comes in a smaller enterprise, may get lost at a bigger level. So I think that sets the stage for the next, I think, aspect where I think I want to explore a little bit further with Ravi in terms of AI and RPA are two different pillars from an automation standpoint, but I think they are also, RPA is reducing your repetitive tasks, whereas AI is actually looking at patterns, looking at much more, I think more looking at a much more conceptual level, and I think building on the RPA base. So I think so I would want to pose a question in terms of to Ravi in terms of this confluence of IT in the BPO world. So I think that is I think that line is slightly becoming blurred in terms of, and I think the one competency is also enabling the other competencies. So how do you see that emerging also, and what is the business model emerging as a result of that?
Very interesting comments from all the panelists coming forward. I think, Alok, to me, I think there are two things which has really shifted the entire paradigm as we saw COVID come and disrupt massively across the world, right? And this is one event which all of us, irrespective of where you are in the world, got affected with, right? I think one thing which has happened now is that people are now looking at, can we use tools, can we use technologies to help and start leading with them? So it's always going to be technology led. So that's one thing which has happened. And it need not just happen with the customer, because the entire work from home has happened, can you apply technologies to make the work from home environment ODC-like, or what we call as captive center-like? And I think there is a lot of work which is happening. I do believe that we are at a stage where the fast will lead the slow rather than the big will lead the small. I think the speed and agility is the currency of this new age. So obviously, I think I agree with all of my panelists when they say that you got to innovate continuously. And to me, I think the confluence between application, operations, and infrastructure is now blurring dramatically, especially in areas where it's a 24/7 digital service, right? Like we know that in banking and financial services, almost all of the retail footprint is now 24/7. So obviously in those cases, and I think some of our panelists, Subbu mentioned this, where you're looking at a customer journey right from the front office to the back office. It doesn't matter where you're intervening, as long as you find that you're either becoming relevant to the customer and giving him better positioning, or getting better control over the transaction lifecycle. So the way in which we see it in Mphasis is that if you are going to apply, let's say, for instance, automation, the entire thing is to look at shifting left and looking at the entire customer journey and figuring out what in the end customer, which means the customer's customer requires, right? And it means that you are really looking at a holistic picture of technology rather than just using automation. You're looking at the entire presentation layer, which is really your customer experience piece. And in some cases, you might have to end up doing the build. In some other cases, you'll have to look at the entire workflow orchestration, right? You might then apply the entire RPA engines for you to look at analytics coming out of data, which then gets fed into the agent, as Mukesh was saying, right? I think it's very important for people to look at what's going to be the to-be state now, especially because it affords now for the customers to relook at their entire current state, right? And this disruption which has happened has really put everything into question. Now, whether it's going to be operating out of India, Manila, and the European geographies, everything is up for grabs, which means that we are really applying technology intelligently. You're applying technology to the ones which matters most to the customer. It doesn't matter if it's going to give you a bit more in terms of investments, or it will take a bit more in terms of timelines, right? I think it's very important for us to, as an industry, to start focusing over there and start applying the entire solutions framework. And Subbu mentioned this in his opening. And first figure saying that what are the things which is most important, and then apply intelligent technologies. Interestingly, I'll give one example before I pass it back to you, Alok.
Sure.
We have used AI in a very different manner, in a sense that as we start getting work from home, we see a huge amount of risk, or what we call as residual risk, in terms of PI data, right? Personally identifiable information, which is where I think most of the breaches can happen. And insider threat can be a big issue around this, right? So what we have done is we have applied a proctoring solution where it's AI-based, and every time anybody tries to whip up their smartphones to capture data from the screen, the AI engine actually stops the session and reports as a breach, right? Now, this is one way where you can start applying AI to a context which protects customer data, right? The other thing which we applied is really around access, right? Because one of the other issues which we have is people using data, accessing data which they shouldn't be. So instead of using the most privileged access, we are now starting to look at user behaviors for people who have been given access. And in case we find suspicious behaviors over there, we actually stop the access, right? So this again is a big thing which we have been applying AI on, which is very interesting because I think rest of my panelists did speak about customer facing. I'm speaking about internal facing. I'll stop here and give it back to you, Alok.
Thanks.
Look, if I can just add to one last line to what Ravi said.
No, absolutely, please.
The two key things, what he very rightly mentioned, if you look at, is that, a proxy of Ravi or a proxy of Subbu, right, should not be really getting into any of these, which is what Ravi was trying to say. And I think that's absolutely important, very essential from what we are trying to give to our customers. We all call that in our industry as facial biometric, which is which was the facial AI, which was not there, which is literally, I can say it was there, but it is born and grown up during the COVID time. That's all I can really say on facial biometric. Added to it, I'm sure Anil would have missed or want to really speak about it at some point, is your voice biometric. Because, is the Ravi who's speaking, or is it Ravi's brother, or is it Subbu speaking, Subbu's brother, somebody else trying to take a call? The voice biometric also is very beautifully captured. And these two are also the two additional security norms which have really been implemented by most of the contact centers to ensure the customers get the best of the security. Just, I thought I'll add on.
No, absolutely. I think adds to the understanding of the group as well. Thanks for that, Subbu. So I don't know, Ivan, we had a polling question also. I don't know whether it can be done in the middle of the, or maybe if not possible, then we will continue on with our discussion. Okay, all right.
So I think you can do it in the middle. You can do it in the middle.
Can we do it for, it will just take a few seconds and we'll get to know the results, because I think unless we get to know the results, we can't really comment on it.
Yeah, so we will not get the results now. So
then I think you can do it at the end. I think if you don't get the results, then we don't really need it in the middle. Great. I think, thanks for that, Subbu and Ravi. I think interesting perspectives there. I think looking at the overall customer journey, I think customer perspective, I think that's very, very critical. The fact that the overall business model is up for, I think, being challenged, given the technology where it is right now. And I think the interesting aspect on the facial biometric, voice biometric, addressing the new security layers. I think those are interesting perspectives. Moving on to the future of work in the context of AI and RPA, let me call upon Sudhir, if you can just share, I think, Boston Scientific's journey, and I think lay it out for us in terms of maybe what do you see from your vantage point, given the fact that you lead it on an APAC basis, and over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Alok. I think the future of work, before I come to future of work, I think there's a future of BPO as well, right? And these are like interlinked as the businesses are transforming, as other panelist members, Subbu and everyone alluded into. The future of business and future of work are very interrelated, right? And you have to understand the business models so that you can serve better, right? And uniquely on this panel, I come from more of a captive. So we are a medical device company, right? We are into, medical devices which are implanted in the human body, right? And as a Boston Scientific, from just an implant of a machine, now we are building and extending of algorithms to that. So the machine can capture the data. And one of the, the many products, but one product which really a great success is the HeartLogic, right? Where it tracks the heart failure chances and gives the data to the doctor 1 week in advance of an alert, right? And which means like we are into moving from a simple product of a machine to more of driving the algorithmic and data, right? And that's where, as an organization, we want to partner and we also outsource a lot of work into the BPOs, right? And they are the partners. So I think from the future of work point of view, as a customer standpoint, if you look at why do an organization go to a BPO, right? Or a service provider? And gone are the days where people used to look for more of a transactional support, right? The future of work is moving from a transactional thinking to a transformational thinking, right? It's moving from a volume-based of work to a value-based work, right? The whole BPO billing models are evolving as we speak, right? And also people are looking at, and BPOs are very workforce heavy, which is a people heavy, right? And now the organizations, or the future of BPOs, or the future of organizations, the future of work will be from a people-centric to more of a technology-centric, because the technology is in a way is transforming how we're going to work, right? So that's going to evolve completely, right? And then when the clients like us are looking for a BPO partner, it's not just a business process outsourcing. They're looking at a business process partnership, which means, as Subbu outlined, are you joined in hip of the strategy of that organization, right? And every organization, the maturity curve is very different. There's a lot of change management required. As a BPO provider, you might be ready to serve, You have all the infrastructure to serve. But sometimes a lot of challenges I see is the organization, what you want to serve is not ready, right? So the change management within the organization also is a lot of factors, right? And the kind of work is also evolving, right? So right now you see a lot of people involving in executing the work, but the future of work is going to change from people perform the tasks to the machines perform the task or the bots perform the task, right? And the people intervention is more of an exception basis, right? So the workforce composition is going to change. And there is a term which you all might have heard, where now they call humbot, where a part of the process is performed by the human, the part of the process is performed by the bots, right? Or the RPAs and so on, right? And also looking at the whole simple reporting to more analytics, right? More real-time analytics is what people are looking at. And we all know that, and very widely used term is data is the new currency. But as an organization, how are you utilizing the data to drive those insights to the business so that it's more real-time rather than most of post-facto element? So the future of work in terms of the people, the process, and technology is constantly evolving, right? In terms of if you talk about the people, the new workforce, the millennial workforce will come and going to disrupt the entire workforce because they are coming with a very upskilled tech savvy, they're very highly tech savvy than the current generation, right? And they are looking for more of a quick, smart solutions, right? So they're going to come and disrupt the future of work is because they're going to disrupt the whole workforce in a way, right? They're looking at working from anytime, anywhere kind of environment. So that's going to change that whole landscape. The processes, if you talk about the future of processes, they're transforming big time because there will be no more required in terms of just people perform the task because we are getting large scale automated tools and workflows which can really perform those tasks. So in a way, you don't get away with all the transactions. The transactions will be automated, 80% of the work, right? Still, there might be 20% chance. And the technologies are changing too, right? We might talk about technology today. In 6 months, a new technology comes and disrupts the entire way. So the future of work is heavily depending on how the customer needs and business needs, in terms of the people, in terms of processes, and in terms of technology. So that's where I would like to say, in terms of how this whole gambit of the future of work is going to evolve. And believe me, I think no one thought that the kind of BCP, right? The untested BCP is being tested where everyone is able to work from home, right? No one really thought whether it's a BPO or a captive or doesn't matter. Any organization never anticipated that, oh, there is a possibility option. And these COVID changing times is helping us transform the technology. The technology transformation is at a very pace where we can't even imagine. So that's what my initial comments on that.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Sudhir. Very interesting, Heart Logic, a very, very innovative kind of a way to kind of address and leverage the technology. I think brilliant. And I think the way you laid out the future of work, moving from transaction to transformation, volume to value, and people to tech, I think sums it up fairly well for us. I think great. Let me, I think, go to our last guest, I think, Balaji. Balaji, I think if you can just maybe, I think, comment on the fact that Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, I think, claimed that AI will be vastly smarter than any human and would overtake us by 2025, and has described it as an existential threat to the humanity. What is your perspective in terms of, I think, the impact on the BPO industry?
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alok. I think in the last possibly 20-30 minutes, we have been exchanging great thoughts, right? From modernization, analytics, data protection, even identity protection through artificial intelligence. So I would like to give two perspectives before I answer the point that you brought up to the table.
Sure.
When we talk about a digital transformation, and originally what we have been doing is more of how well the clients or customers leveraging the products or service, and what is their journey, using or leveraging all of this, and then we were figuring out how do we bring in digital, to optimize or to give a great customer experience, CX to say, right? So that, I think the paradigm is slightly changing. I mean, including us trying to look at it. How do we bring in greater employee experience or employee engagement, that eventually adding it to the customer experience. The fact is that work from anywhere is needing to have a high degree of employee engagement. While we talk about data protection, the ability for them to get their job done. So in that fact, there are quite a lot of virtual aspects coming in to get the job done through artificial intelligence. We are today even talking about digital human. For example, digital human completely becoming a brand ambassador, for a company, completely taking over whatever the human is doing with a not only IQ, because if you talk about any of the work that we do, they predominantly on IQ. Be it bringing the analytics, doing neural networks with the machine learning, or your Humbart, which Sudhir mentioned about. You would see quite a lot of IQ playing a part to understand what the data is saying. How do we need to use that? But whereas when we talk about a digital human, which is like something like Elon Musk talking about, which is bringing EQ as well, IQ plus EQ, and a human-like touch and feel, understanding emotion through conversation, deriving from a conversation how human understand the emotion. Similarly, the facial reactions, so that is something where like the customer representative or service industry, where you have 7 million customer representative, you're talking about $400 billion business, is going to seriously look at it, how much the digital human can influence and then give a great customer experience.
Hello, I have a point over here, if I can.
Sorry, Ravi, you had a point?
Back to you, Alok.
Yes,
Yeah.
I had a quick point over here. So,
Sure, please.
Interestingly, yesterday I was reading an article which was speaking about GTP3, right? Now, this is the open source AI which Microsoft has been propagating. And what it has done is, it was pretty scary when this article which I was reading was that it was able to start putting content together in a manner as if an agent would do, right?
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, it was, and when you were doing it and you were communicating to this engine through natural language, right? Which means that you're really speaking, it's almost like doing a Google search. So if you're saying describe strawberries scientific, it talks about the genus of strawberries and what is good for them and so on and so forth. Now, interestingly, clearly, I think it's going to do massive strides, and the future is upon us very clearly. But I think for the BPO industry is what it has thrived, and my panelists will bear me out on this, and I'm sure they will support, is that BPO industry is not about just putting together content, but marking the SLAs, right? In a sense that we got to be precise, right? We got to do things which is going to be within a certain parameter. We are getting measured on metrics. So obviously for the AI engine to start coming towards that preciseness is the journey which we are looking at, right? Now, I do think, and I think the Humbots and the bots which will be seamless to what people will do will start becoming more and more common as we start getting into. We are already seeing bots happening in reconciliations, for instance. We're seeing bots coming through and looking at customer onboarding, and there are numerous amount of use cases happening over there. There are two things which I would highlight over here. One is that this has to sit inside the customer environment, and hence it requires the customers, and that's why the maturity model of the customer, which Sudhir spoke about, becomes very important, right? Because it really has to sit in with the customer, so maturity of the customer becomes important. The second point I would say is that it shouldn't be that just because you have technology, you go and find a solution for it. It's like finding, having a medicine and finding the disease, right? Sometimes you don't require to do that. You just require to do what the end customer wants, right? So I would say that we need to be selective in what we apply and when we apply it. Back to you, Alok. I just thought that I just
No,
wanted to
absolutely. I think I think we are almost kind of winding up. I don't know, even we probably overshot our time, but
Yeah, maybe just a point to add to what Ravi mentioned, and important from, bot and human perspective in today's world is to ensure that how do we do an upskill of the existing, employees and give them probably the right tools. So one point that, I keep on engaging with customers, and a very important thing that comes up is that how can you ensure that the knowledge which is across the organization is seamless? And, one of the things that customers are very widely deploying today is knowledge management, which is automated in a sense that it provides you predictive outcome, basis the interaction which is going on. And this knowledge is consistent and contextual, which essentially means that irrespective of the employee, the right set of information is provided, in real time sense. And that really brings in, the discussion of whether you want to have bots or you want to do a right skill of your employees. And that's a very important battle, is that do you want to hire AI, or do you want to really work with your employees and really ensure that you give the right sense of CX to your end customers? So I just thought I'll bring that point of knowledge management, which is very important in today's time to make an impact in customer service.
So
No,
the
no,
other
absolutely.
point, to add, AI cannot be or seen as a threat. It's like it has to work together with human to have a high degree of impact, in customer experience or a transformation.
So I think, yeah, I think that's a fairly good note to close the conversation in terms of on the changing landscape of Indian businesses with AI and RPA. I think it should not be seen as a threat. There are a lot of positives that are coming out in terms of the technologies, the way I think new solutions are coming out. I think like Heart Logic, for example, I think I don't think anybody will have a threat with that. I think if you can really have that level of, I think, and it's, you can translate that into a context of a BPO or any other process wherein you can get a early warning signal for, let's say, any breakage of the process, right? So I think so those are important elements that we are looking at. I think very interesting aspect on the security authentication using facial and biometric, as well as I think the voice biometric. Very interesting perspective on the future of work, which actually sets the agenda for the overall BPO industry, as articulated by Sudhir, in terms of move from transaction to transformation, moving from the volume to value, and the people to tech. So I think with that, I guess I think we can come to a
Hello,
close.
can I make one last comment? I think we all agree that with the maturity and experience what we all bring, a lot of focus and conversations happen on machine learning, right? I think it's important to emphasize that there is also a human learning. And that's very important. We all talk about the artificial intelligence. Let's not forget there is a real intelligence. And that's what I keep telling in many forums and my own teams, that as we continue to learn, that's only we can teach others, right? Whether it is a machine or a human. And let's not forget that as much lot of forums focus on artificial intelligence and all, but let's not forget we all are humans and we have much real intelligence, and that has to be continually built. And that's when the job market or a skill or upskilling or reskilling will only happen. Without that, I don't think there is a possibility to really succeed.
So great, Sudhir. I think you just answered the question, the Elon Musk question. So I don't know whether we'll see from the results whether I think the audience has been impacted by your comment, but I think that's a good kind of a faith in the human intelligence that we will go strong, and we'll go probably 2 steps ahead of the machine intelligence or the AI. And yeah. Over to you, Evan.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sudhir, Mukesh, Subramania, Balaji, Ravi, and Anil, for all the insights that you tabled on the changing landscape for Indian businesses with AI and RPA. I'm sure we could go on for another hour, but we're running behind schedule. So thank you for taking time off your schedules and joining us on this summit. We wish you and your respective organizations the very best going forward. And thank you, Alok, for doing a fantastic job of moderating and summing up this panel discussion. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to The fifth poll question of the day, kindly minimize the player button so that you can view the poll question to the right of your screen. Do participate in large numbers. You will have 60 seconds to choose your option. Post the poll results being displayed. We will be back on the other side with the next live session. Happy polling.